Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of the Formula Bone F1 show, the Formula One podcast that'll soon win pole position in your heart. I'm Jared J-Bone Borislow, and I could not be more excited for you to join me on this journey. You, listening right now, are ground floor Formula Bone F1 show, so shouts to you, and away we go. I want to start off the podcast by explaining why I was inspired to make a podcast to go along with all the Formula One content I've been putting out for the past around 4 months now on at Formula Bone. As you know from being here right now, Formula Bone is a podcast now. This podcast is for any and all fans of Formula One and is designed to drastically improve your F1 experience before, during, and after race weekends. If you like Formula One, whether you're a lifelong fan or you just got into it via Netflix's Drive to Survive, this podcast is for you. Well, with one exception, of course. You see, I was inspired to make this podcast because of the insane amount of people who began following F1 because of Drive to Survive, including me. Drive to Survive fans who then became diehard F1 fans, I am one of you. And like many of you, I looked around trying to find Formula One content that catered to me as a new but enthusiastic, very enthusiastic, and eager fan of the sport. A lot of us Drive to Survive fans that are now F1 fans are like sponges. We got what they gave to us in the show, but now we want the real thing, baby. Give it to me. There's definitely some great content out there right now, but during my search, I also found a lot of negativity toward new fans by people who refer to us in a mean way as the Drive to Survive F1 fans. Like how we found F1 somehow means our fandom is less important than theirs for some reason. It's weird. We're new, sure, but we're passionate. We love F1, just like you do. So why do you have a problem with us? What? Does getting into F1 from a TV show make me less of a man? Of a fan? Of a Kimi Räikkönen stan? No, it does not. So I created the Formula Bone F1 show to take a stand against Formula One gatekeeping by longtime fans who are, for some reason, mad that their sport is getting more popular. To them, I say get used to it because we're here to stay. So yeah, this podcast is for all F1 fans except for those selfish gatekeeping bungholes trying to keep F1 for themselves. F1 is to be taken seriously, but not that seriously. That's why I'm sitting here recording this podcast from a race car bed despite being a grown man. Don't believe me? Just watch the video. The next thing that I want to say is that sponsors are the reason this podcast is able to exist, so I'd really appreciate it if you're able to support them if they sound interesting to you. My goal with any ad that I have on the podcast is to make it fun, enjoyable, and as relatable as possible, so my listeners do not have to go through the hassle of trying to skip through them. That is my promise to you. Speaking of sponsors, support for the Formula Bone F1 show is brought to you by Manscaped. Manscaped is the Lewis Hamilton of men's below-the-waist grooming, aka the current undisputed champion of the world. I'm actually wearing a Manscaped shirt right now because this is F1 and we wear our sponsors. I need them to send me like a big sticker so I can just slap it right here in the Bone Mobile. I want to start doing that with all the sponsors and literally just make it look like a Formula One car. Hopefully I can get some of their sponsors too. So manscaping, whether you're familiar or not, I'm going to explain it to you, is the art of taming a man's unruly body hair, which spans from the chest pubes down to the ball fro and below. And let me admit something to you real quick. Maybe I shouldn't admit this because I might lose some listeners, but I'm going to anyway in the name of transparency, okay? I used to manscape with the same trimmer that I used on my face. I'm not proud of it. I regret it. It was gross, but the past is in the past, and I can only look forwards now. And that's why I love Manscaped. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They just launched their 4th generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0, and it is the greatest groin and body trimmer ever created. The trimmer is waterproof and it helps reduce a bunch of manscaping hazards such as nicks, ingrown hairs, and grooming accidents. It also features wireless charging. That's a technological advancement. And it comes with 4 guard lengths for just the right trim. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code FBO at manscaped.com. That is 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code FBO. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. Thank you to Manscaped for supporting the Formula Bone F1 show. Shouts to them. All right, everybody. First topic on today's first ever episode of the Formula Bone F1 show. recapping my experience attending the 2021 United States Grand Prix this past weekend. Now, before I get into it, I want to say that I had approximately 25,000 people come at me for saying Grand Prix in my Friday recap video that you can find on social media. By the way, if you want day-to-day if you want day-by-day video recaps of my experience, I made 1-minute recap videos for each day of the USGP race weekend that you can find on my social media at Formula Bone, as well as on YouTube. Now, in the Friday recap video, I said United States Grand Prix, as we say here in America. So many people came for my neck. They were like, it's Grand Prix, it's Grand Prix. It's not Grand Prix, you stupid American. Now, here's the deal. Grand Prix versus Grand Prix, for me, is like aunt versus aunt. There's no rule or rhyme or reason behind why I say one or the other. I have an Aunt Jenny and I have an Aunt Patty. I don't understand why I say it differently for each one, but I do. It's the same thing. Sometimes I call it a Grand Prix. Sometimes I call it a Grand Prix. I can't control it. I apologize. I also say a lot of other things that people had problems with. Esteban Ocon. People are saying it was Ocon, I guess. I don't know. I'm an American. I say things differently. Yeah. So I wanted to use this segment to not talk about that. I wanted to use it to give some additional perspective on what the experience at the United States Grand Prix was like as a whole. As many of you know by now, the 2021 USGP has gone down as the most attended Formula One race weekend of all time, with over 400,000 attendees, I was 3 of them, over the course of the 3-day race weekend, and you could absolutely feel that energy inside Circuit of the Americas. The 2021 USGP will go down as the official arrival of Formula One in America. Sure, it's technically been here for decades, but I'll call all that time just an extended vacation. This past weekend has shown that Formula One is an absolute sport to be reckoned with in America, one that has staying power, and one that could change the United States' entire motorsport landscape. And we all know why that is. It's because of Drive to Survive. The main reason Americans have largely not cared about F1 until now, in my opinion, is that we had no easy, accessible way of getting to know the drivers and teams on a personal level. The second that Drive to Survive gave us that, and that COVID gave all of us time to watch Drive to Survive, it was game over. Formula One then became a reality TV show combined with a sport. And there are no two things Americans love more than reality TV shows and sports. It's like Jake Paul's boxing career or the Vanderpump Rules characters punching each other, except way cooler because it's European and fancy, and cars go vroom, 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 fast around corners. So yeah, F1 is here to stay. Let's go! Another note I have is that the 2021 USGP was the most positive sports atmosphere I have ever been a part of. My friend Will DeFries of the Circling Back podcast, who also attended, echoed this sentiment. Everybody at the race, every single person was in a good mood. Everybody. I've never seen that before in America. There's usually some grumpy person, even if you're at the happiest place on earth. And I don't just mean Disney World or Disneyland or any other theme park. There's a lot of other happy places. So everybody at the USGP was happy. There was this collective camaraderie at the event that I'd never experienced before at a sporting event. For example, I went to this event alone and was sitting alone in the Turn 9 grandstand. That didn't matter because everyone around me was discussing the race together and what tires everyone was currently on and who was pitting and how many seconds behind Lewis Max was, then how many seconds behind Max Lewis was, and so on. I also didn't really think about it until later, but this was the first sporting event that I ever attended alone. And at the same time, I can't imagine a sporting event at which I felt less alone. That's not a knock on my friends and family if you're listening. I'm not insulting you. I love your company. It's just a testament to the USGP atmosphere. It was unbelievable. I absolutely cannot wait to go to my next Formula One race, wherever that may be. If you want to get me a ticket to anything, hit me up. Speaking of tickets, next up, I want to discuss ticket prices. I've had like 100 people reach out to me asking me, how much are your F1 tickets? How much is your race day ticket? How much is your Saturday ticket? How much are your tickets? It has been truly insane. I think more people have reached out to me about this than have reached out to me about anything in my 6-year content career. It's been nuts. And I think it's because F1 tickets are always sold out and very expensive. And they also change on a racetrack by racetrack basis. So unless you actually intend to go and look up prices, you have no way of knowing how much tickets were going for market value for a race. So I think that's why so many people reached out. And in the name of transparency, here's how much I paid for each of my 3 tickets. Friday, which is, FP1, FP2. There was a 21 Pilots concert that night. I had general admission, and I purchased this ticket at cost from Coda for $62.65 after taxes and fees. Not too bad to see cars go vroom, vroom around the track. FP1, FP2. I didn't stay for 21 Pilots, but by all accounts, they put on a great show. $62.65 is a steal if you can get off work, of course. I actually didn't get there till FP2 because of work, but still had an amazing time. Saturday. The F1 weekend ramps up. So it goes Friday, great. Saturday, awesome. Sunday, incredible. The prices ramp up as well. Saturday, I was front row of the Turn 18 grandstand. I purchased this ticket on the secondary market for, guess real quick, say your guess out loud, $120.69 after taxes and fees. Again, I got to see FP3, I got to see qualifying, and then I got to see Billy Joel. All 3 of those things is definitely worth $120.69. Plus, I was front row for FP3 and qualifying. A steal. You're probably like, wow, I heard F1 is really expensive. That sounds amazing. I agree. That was, obviously it's expensive, but you're definitely getting your money's worth. Now, Sunday is the day everybody really wants to know about. So the moment you've all been waiting for, Sunday, aka race day, I sat in row 27 of the Turn 9 grandstand, and I purchased my ticket on the secondary market. So obviously, there's going to be some markup there. I want you to guess right now. Say it out loud. Okay. My Sunday race day USGP ticket, row 27 of the Turn 9 grandstand, cost $5,000. I'm just kidding. It was $432.66. What's funny is that there's so much confusion in the F1 pricing space that some people are going to think that's crazy expensive, and other people will think it's a bargain. It's truly a space that we definitely need to have more transparency on. There's been a decent amount of transparency right now regarding the Miami Grand Prix because the pricing there was absurd. It was like $1,000 minimum for like a 3-day, maybe GA ticket. It's going to be a crazy expensive event. If you've ever been to Miami, it doesn't surprise you because Miami is one of the most expensive cities on earth. Costs like $25 for a cocktail that has like 1 shot in it. It's unbelievable. Bottle service in Miami is for one night and like a table is more than I make in a year. I'm not even kidding. Well, depending on where you're at. It's truly absurd. Miami is an expensive city, so obviously that is going to be more expensive than Austin. Austin's it's getting up there in terms of expensiveness for things, but this event's far more affordable than that. So I hope that pricing is able to give you kind of a better idea of what you're looking at if you're considering attending a Formula One race. My final note, oh, by the way, I meant to say this. So my Sunday ticket, again, $432.66. My seat, which I bought the cheapest seated ticket I could find on Ticketmaster. Cheapest one I could find. It was actually the same price as some general admission tickets, so I saw that, went boom, insta-buy. Expected that I'd like maybe be able to see one turn and just watch the video board and you listen to the broadcast for the rest of it. My seat was incredible. I was in Turn 9, Section 4 of the grandstand. From my seat, I could see all of turns 6 to 11 and the entire back straight all the way into the Turn 12 braking zone. Like an unbelievable part of the racetrack to be able to see, I got to see. I got to see Kimi beach it, which is very sad. Got to see Lewis kind of gain on Max through turns 6 to 10, and then Max get onto the back straight and just absolutely blast down the back straight way faster than Lewis. Great seat. Highly recommend Turn 9 if you're ever going to Coda. And by the way, thanks to this vantage point that I had, I knew Max almost certainly had this race in the bag with like 10 laps left. I could watch Lewis gain a little ground on Max in the beginning of Sector 2 over the last 10 laps or so, but Max was just taking off down the back straight and looked much quicker than Lewis even before he got that DRS off Mick Schumacher. It was awesome to have that vantage point and be able to watch him keep the lead in his hands. Again, turn 9, highly recommend. Support for the Formula Bone F1 show is also brought to you by BlueChew, which might be just the gas your car's looking for. Wink, wink. Make sure you stick around for the end of this read, by the way, because the code for BlueChew that I have is incredible. Guys, this one's for you. There are all kinds of reasons guys aren't able to quote-unquote perform. Age, medical condition, and, for the younger guys, stress and anxiety. Luckily, the chewables from BlueChew.com can help make sure you're able to perform at your best. BlueChew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, except in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. BlueChew's tablets combat all forms of ED and can help men gain extra confidence for when it's time to perform. BlueChew is an online prescription service, so it absolutely could not be more convenient. There are no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy, and it ships right to your door in a discreet package. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Days! The best part, it is all done online. BlueChew's licensed medical providers work with you to find the right ingredient and strength for your prescription. BlueChew's sildenafil and tadalafil tablets are chewable. Tablets made in the United States. USA, baby. And BlueChew prepares and ships direct, so it's cheaper than a pharmacy. If you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, visit BlueChew.com. Formula Bone F1 show listeners can try BlueChew free. That's free 99, aka free, when you use my promo code FBone at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That is BlueChew.com, promo code FBone to receive your first month free. It's easy to remember because that promo code is FBone for your FBone. Thank you to BlueChew for supporting the Formula Bone F1 show. Next topic. Expectations versus reality, attending an F1 race edition. So these are some expectations I had going into my United States Grand Prix experience versus the reality that I experienced when I was there. First expectation, I would get to watch the podium celebration in person. Reality, my seat was like 1.5 miles away on the complete opposite end of the racetrack. So I had to watch it on a video board because it happened so soon after the race that those who are far away, like I was, do not have a chance of making it through the crowd and then going 1.5 miles in like 10 minutes to see the podium celebration. I really did think, like in my brain, it was like, yeah, watch the race, see the winner for my seats, or see the winner on the video board for my seats, casually stroll over, see the champagne being sprayed and the trophies being handed out. Absolutely not. I was not even close. I might as well have been outside the racetrack. But I did get to watch it on the video board. I still got to hear that fancy little song they play. So it was all good. But definitely expected to see that for some reason, which like realistically, when I look back on it, I don't know why I thought that was going to happen. Second expectation, I'd buy a cool hat and shirt as race souvenirs. Reality, everything I wanted was either sold out early or so ungodly expensive that I would need to remortgage my apartment to afford it, which isn't a thing you can legally do, to my knowledge. I have a buddy who bought a Mercedes hat for $90. This is the hat. It goes on your head and you wear it sometimes. $90. Now this hat, I saw it, was super high quality and absolutely awesome. It was one of the coolest hats I've ever seen in my life, in fact. But $90 for a hat that you put on your head sometimes is insane. I'll just stick to picking up vintage F1 gear on eBay that somebody probably died in, like the broke boy I am. Get ready, eBay, I'm coming. Final expectation, actually no, I have 2 more. Next expectation is that I would have a full understanding of all the race storylines from my seat, thanks to getting to see turn 6 to 11 and the back straight from my seat, and having the video board and broadcast being played over the loudspeakers, covering the rest for me. Reality. Now, I've heard that this expectation actually was the case for many people, but the video board in the turn 9 grandstand where I was seated turned off at one point, just didn't show for like 2 or 3 laps. Plus, the entire race, the loudspeakers were so quiet that I couldn't hear them the entire race. So I wasn't able to track some storylines like the Alonso shenanigans, Kimi's battle for points that ended with him taking a beach day, which, again, he did take a beach day in front of me, so I did get to see that. The McLaren versus Ferrari battle as well. I would have liked to have kind of watched that a bit more, but I couldn't really get a good feel for it while at the racetrack. Now, this may have just been a result of me sitting in what I think is COTA's largest grandstand, so maybe they just didn't have the, audio visual setup for that figured out. Who knows? But speaking of grandstands, my final expectation is that my seat would in no way make me feel like I could die at any moment. Now, the reality was the opposite of that. I'm not kidding when I say that the grandstands at COTA are the jankiest grandstands that I've ever stood on in my entire life. Literally the only thing standing between you and plummeting 5 stories to your death, hitting a few slightly rusty aluminum poles on your way down, is a metal plank that is held up on each end by metal hooks with absolutely nothing below it. And the metal planks would rock back and forth constantly as people shifted their weight to and fro. What I mean is this. You have a piece of metal, a plank you might see on a pirate ship. They put that on top of these little hooks. So like, if I wanted to, I could have picked up the thing I was walking on and just had a gaping hole in the grandstand. But I obviously didn't do that because, I'm not trying to die myself or kill somebody. But you're standing on this thing and there's nothing below it for 5 stories. It was like, I feel like I was a tightrope walker. It was unbelievable. Pair that with the fact that everyone knew this would be the biggest crowd that had ever stood on these grandstands, and the result was literally everyone around me making a comment about how they were slightly terrified they were going to drop down like Mario going through a pipe at literally any moment. I'm not saying it took away from the experience, but I was definitely like shifting my weight around so that if it did happen to go out, I would be able to like fall forward or backwards. Kind of terrifying. And maybe me being scared of heights is playing into this, but everybody around me validating me made me feel better about not overreacting, but I felt worse because I was like, oh, if I usually overreact and I'm actually not overreacting, then maybe this is it for me. But it wasn't, and it was amazing, and I did not fall 5 stories through a COTA grandstand in my death. Rumor has it, though, that Squid Games is going to use the COTA grandstands as part of a choose the right row to walk on or die game in Season 2. Stay tuned for that. All right, guys and gals, we're at the most important part of this first ever Formula Bone F1 show episode. I've done some sleuthing and crunched the numbers and talked to my team over team radio, and I've come to the conclusion that if everyone listening to this right now goes to Apple Podcasts and rates this podcast 5 stars and leaves a helpful, funny review, the Formula Bone F1 show will launch on Apple Podcasts as the #1 Formula 1 podcast in the world. I'm not kidding. It sounds crazy, but I've done this before. I'm not new to the podcast launch game. All it takes for this to happen is you listening right now to take 1 minute to go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review. And this humble baby podcast you're listening to will instantly pop to #1 on the Apple Podcast charts. This is because Apple Podcasts, if you're wondering the nitty-gritty details, highly promotes a show's newness to engagement ratio. And you could be the engagement by way of a rating and review that makes this new show that just went live go from non-existent to the #1 F1 podcast on the charts. Do it for me, but more importantly, do it for you. For me. Seriously, though, it will get so many new eyeballs on this podcast. If you could all do that for me, I would greatly, a million greatlies appreciate it. Let's grow the show, baby. It's launched. It's out here. Let's send it. Thank you so much for joining me here for the premiere episode of the Formula Bone F1 show. I hope you enjoyed it. Whether you did or didn't, I would love to hear your feedback. Shoot me a DM on Twitter or Instagram or wherever. Comment on YouTube, comment on TikTok. I would love to hear your feedback. If you DM me about the show with some, constructive feedback, I will respond to you. I promise you. Every person who DMs me at Formula Bone on Twitter or Instagram with constructive criticism or, positive or negative about the show, I will respond to you. Promise. If you don't believe me, test it. Message me right now. I'll DM you back. You can follow me on social media everywhere at Formula Bone, and my personal account is at Jared Borislow. If you want to follow me on Twitter at Formula Bone, I live tweet every single race. Wake up early as us Americans do, live tweet the race, have a great time on there, throwing out tweets and retweets and engaging with other people who wake up at 7 a.m. to watch cars go around a beautiful track. There's no better way to live. You can also follow me on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, where I have full video episodes of this very podcast and every podcast coming after. Thank you guys again so much for being here. It's time for the NPR style sign off. The Formula Bone F1 show is brought to you by Bolen Media and hosted by me, Jared J-Bone Borislow. I also produce the show because I'm a content machine. Our royalty-free theme music is from some Russian guy named John Yasut, who looks shockingly similar to me. It's kind of creepy. You can follow the show on social media by following at Formula Bone everywhere. You can watch the show on YouTube by searching Formula Bone and hitting that subscribe and notification buttons. And you can help the show's launch be successful by supporting today's sponsors, as well as by rating and reviewing the Formula Bone F1 show on Apple Podcasts. Until we meet again, J-Bone!